For every generation of air combat, there was a fighter jet that pilots loved to fly, and one they absolutely dreaded. Some jets rewrote history. Others wasted billions and got people killed. Starting with the era that defined modern dogfighting, and the jet that almost destroyed the U.S. Air Force's reputation before it even got off the ground, was supposed to be America's first great jet fighter. Instead, it became one of the most embarrassing aircraft the U.S. ever sent into combat. When the Korean War broke out in 1950, the F-84 was rushed in the fight as a ground attack aircraft, and from day one pilots hated it. The engine took so long to spool up that takeoffs on hot days were genuinely life-threatening. Fully loaded, the jet needed almost every foot of the runway just to get airborne, and sometimes it still didn't make it. But the real problem was what happened when it met enemy fighters. Against the Soviet-built MiG-15, the F-84 was completely outclassed. Pilots reported that the MiG-15 could simply choose whether fight or walk away. The F-84 had no say in the matter. The Air Force logged hundreds of these jets lost, not just to enemy fire, but to mechanical failure and accidents caused by its own design flaws. Pilots nicknamed it the lead sled. That's not affection, that's resignation. But while the F-84 was grinding pilots down in Korea, a completely different jet was giving American airmen the confidence of gods. 86 Sabre didn't just win in Korea. It defined what it meant to be a fighter pilot for a generation. When U.S. pilots first encountered the MiG-15 in November 1950, panic spread through Air Force Command. The MiG was faster at altitude, climbed quicker, and had a higher ceiling. For a brief moment, American air superiority looked genuinely threatened. Then the Sabre entered the fight, and everything changed. The F-86 had one critical advantage the MiG lacked: hydraulically powered controls. At high speeds, MiG pilots have physically fight their own aircraft. Sabre pilots just flew. That split-second responsiveness in a dogfight was the difference between going home and going down. By the end of the war, Sabre pilots claimed a kill ratio against the MiG-15 of roughly 10-1. Historians debate the exact numbers, but even the conservative estimates show dominance that no other aircraft in history had matched in jet-to-jet combat. Pilots who flew the Sabre didn't just respect it, they loved it. Decades later, Korean War veterans still talk about it like a partner that never let them down. 105 Thunderchief was originally to carry a nuclear weapon into the Soviet Union at supersonic speed. That was its one job. Then Vietnam happened, and the Air Force sent it to do everything else instead. Tasked with flying strike missions deep into North Vietnam, at some of the most concentrated air defenses on Earth, the F-105 suffered losses that were genuinely catastrophic. The Air Force was losing thuds faster than they could replace them. In the first 3 years of the Air War, over 300 F-105s were lost. That was more than half the entire production run of the aircraft. Pilots flying Rolling Thunder missions knew the math. If you flew enough sorties over the north, the question wasn't whether you'd be shot down. It was when. The aircraft was not built for this. It was heavy, it struggled in a turning fight, and it had no real defense against enemy MiGs trying to catch it on the way out. Crews called it thud. Some said it was the sound it made when it hit the ground. The F-4 Phantom was ugly. Pilots who flew it will tell you that themselves. It had a bent nose, drooped wing tips, and looked like it was designed by a committee in a hurry. But ask any Vietnam veteran who flew the Phantom what they thought of it, and you will hear the same answer every time it brought them home. The Phantom could do everything. It flew air superiority, it flew ground attack, it flew reconnaissance. It flew at twice the speed of sound and still had enough fuel reserve to make bad decisions and survive them. When the Navy's Top Gun School was created in 1969 specifically to fix America's dismal aerial kill ratio in Vietnam, it was Phantom crews they trained. And when those crews went back into combat, the results changed immediately. No aircraft in the Vietnam War flew more missions, carried more ordnance, or served longer in frontline roles than the F-4. It served with the Air Force, the Navy, and the Marines. 12 countries flew it. Some still do. The Phantom wasn't flashy. It was built to fight, and it fought there was nothing left to fight with. The F-111 started as one of the most ambitious aircraft programs in American history, and turned into one of the most expensive disasters the Pentagon had ever seen. The idea was bold. Build one aircraft that could do everything: high-speed strike, close air support, carrier operations, strategic bombing. Defense Secretary Robert McNamara forced the Air Force and Navy to share the design, over the objections of both services. The Navy eventually walked away. The Air Force was stuck with it. When the F-111 was rushed into combat over Vietnam in 1968 in a deployment called Combat Lancer, 3 of the 6 aircraft deployed were lost in combat within weeks. The program was quietly halted. Congressional investigations followed. The aircraft was grounded, overhauled, and eventually fixed, but the damage to its reputation never fully healed. Pilots who flew the later variants respected its speed and its terrain, following radar. But no one who knew the full history of the program ever called F-111 anything other than what it was, a political aircraft that nearly got a generation of pilots killed. But while the Aardvark was failing at almost everything it was asked to do, one jet was being built to do one thing, and doing it better thing that had ever existed. The F-15 Eagle was designed with one mission: destroy enemy aircraft, not bomb bridges, not support ground troops, kill fighters. And in that mission, it has never been beaten. Since its introduction in 1976, the F-15 has accumulated a combat record of over 100 area victories and 0 losses in air-to-air combat. That number has held for nearly 5 decades across conflicts in the Middle East, the Balkans, and beyond. Pilots who flew the Eagle didn't just love the jet, they trusted their lives to it completely. The cockpit visibility was revolutionary. The twin-engine configuration meant you could lose an engine over hostile territory and still make it home. The radar was so advanced that, for years, U.S. pilots could engage targets before the enemy even knew they were there. When Israel flew F-15s against Syrian MiGs in 1982 and away with kill ratios reported above 80-1 without a single aircraft lost, the message to every air force on Earth was clear: the Eagle wasn't just a great fighter jet. For nearly 50 years, it has been the standard against which every other fighter in the world is measured. In the end, every generation of air combat proved the same truth. The jets that pilots loved were the ones that gave them control, gave them confidence, and brought them home. The ones they hated were the ones designed by committees, built for politics, or sent into roles they were never meant to fill.